You're an expert in experiential marketing. Your new book kind of zeroes in on what I think you call the hyper-developing world. Um, how should experiential marketers take into account different cultural norms if they're doing this kind of stuff out there?
I think the first thing that they have to do is recognize that their marketplace is global. And anything that you do in the so-called Western world, North America or Europe, has to have resonance in the global marketplace as well. And if you're looking for new clients and new consumers, you have to look there. Now the question is, what do you do? Do you take what you do in the Western world and just basically retranslate it for the rest of the world? Or do you go find insights in the rest of the world and create new campaigns? My contention is you go and find insights in the rest of the world and do it the right way. I think that's, you see some stuff like this in Canada where, especially in the Quebec market, there'll be a Canadian ad just dubbed in French. And that never really resonates as much as if a homegrown ad gets put out here. So the beauty of experiential is that the insights are human. They're not necessarily market specific, they're human specific. And there's some global truths that you can find for all of humanity that if you can tap into that, it should work wherever you go.
Got it. You talk a lot about subversion marketing, or the subversion of institutional laws in places like Russia. You have the example of standard vodka and all that. Is there a lesson, a takeaway here for North American marketers? Or, Western marketers?
One of my favorite quotes is, I'm going to paraphrase, but it's, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. And so, if the idea is big, do the idea. Don't worry about what happens and how to do it. Just do it. And if it's good enough, it'll resonate. And that's what lawyers are for too. Like marketers aren't lawyers. Let the lawyers deal with it.
Okay. As you put it in your book, when you're talking about reaching consumers in the global economy, you're essentially, like you said, talking about marketing to poor people. There seems to be a fine line between development and exploitation in a sense. I mean, how do you want to invest in developing economies, but you don't want to sell things too hard to people that really can't afford them. How do brands navigate that line in an ethical way?
Huge question, huge. And I talk about 4 billion people living on less than $2 a day, and the ethical question is, why would you take any amount of that away from people? And the answer is, you're hoping that the products and services that you're marketing are going to help them come out of that poverty. If your marketing and services is just to get them to buy more candy, don't do it. But if your marketing services is to allow a poor farmer in rural India to get market quotes on the price of wheat on their cell phone, then market that service for that cell phone to them because it helps them. So it really comes down to, I wouldn't call it self-censorship, but at least a bit of empathy to the rest of the world. That if you just want to sell shit, go ahead, but no one's going to care.
Yeah. So one of the things at Sparksheet that we really look at is how brands market to what they call the consumer in transit, the transumer, the person that's always on the go. You talk about in Sao Paulo the ban on out-of-home advertising, and you talked about it a little bit in your talk about branded theater. You talk a little bit more about how people are really reaching people in this out-of-home, on-the-go space around the world?
One of the worst things you can possibly do is to interrupt people's lives. And that's a lot of guerrilla marketing, so-called, tries to do. And that's just a really soft and sophomoric way of breaking through the clutter. I have no idea how many times I've been in New York City trying to get on a subway and there's someone handing out gum. And I'm trying to get down onto the L station and there's a huge line because there's 4 people in a stupid uniform trying to give me gum. I take that gum and I'll never buy it again because you just took away my basic right as a consumer to go about my life the way I want to. So interruptive marketing is probably it's kind of what pop-up banner ads are to people, except now it's in the real world, which is even more kind of hard-hitting than a pop-up banner ad. The one thing that I could say that guerrilla marketing allows you to do is if I'm pissed off at that person, I can tell them that I'm pissed off. Right? I could scream at them. I can make their day horrible. And maybe they'll talk to their brand manager or whoever and say, maybe we shouldn't do this here. Maybe there's too many consumers are saying no. Not a lot of people are going to try to find the email address to someone who threw up a pop-up banner ad on their website experience. But I can tell you one thing, if I tell someone in real life that I think their marketing sucks, hopefully it'll get back to them.
When's the last time you came across some really useful branded experience or content?
Good question. I mean, a lot of the things that apps are becoming a form of marketing that is becoming a service. And you're judged, on the App Store, you have comments about what it is. So if it's an app that just basically takes a commercial and puts it on your iPhone and gives you a little bit of interactivity with it, that's crap. But if it's an app that actually helps you, like TripAdvisor or Sitter Squad or Wi-Fi Spotter, like all those apps actually help me. So that kind of digital marketing, the marketing that you can kind of sped out, but then at the same time accessible in my cell phone or in my smartphone, that becomes a very serviceable kind of marketing. And I think that type of digital marketing is transcending what we normally know as internet marketing and digital marketing into the app marketing, where it actually becomes a useful tool. And that really is where the future of digital marketing lies, is what are the tools that we can build for people that's not just a branded thing, but actually an actionable thing.
Yeah, last question on a similar note. We're looking a lot at how to connect the online world with the physical world. I think apps get at this a little bit, and we did a piece on QR codes and stuff like that. So how do you kind of, you create this branded experience, branded theater, whatever it is somewhere, how do you then kind of make that link to drive them back to a website, or how do you make a website, that an interactive experience that also kind of translates into somebody's physical real life?
At Crispin and Bogusky, the practice that I run is called outeractive, and that's obviously a pun on interactive. And what outeractive seeks to do is do exactly what you just said, is to bridge that gap between a digital experience and a physical, and vice versa, physical and digital. And I do think that smartphones are the way to do that. In that whatever the experience I have right now, I tweet about it, right? And that tweet is going out to everyone I know and everyone I don't know, really. But how do you make sure that that tweet is directly connected to the experience I just had, and give brand the credibility and basically the approbation that this is because of this brand? And that's what I'm charged to do, is that bridging of physical and digital. And like I said in my speech, the number one marketing segment that's growing right now is digital. And right behind it is event marketing, it's physical. So there is this notion about us being so digitally interconnected, but we're alone when we do that. Like if I'm on Facebook, I'm alone, even though I have 500 friends. I'm alone when I'm actually accessing Facebook. But at the same time, we are destined as human beings to connect with other human beings. And the digital end does not do that right now. So what is it that we can complement the digital end with physical activities, physical activations, that gives us that humanity back? And that is the future. That's the next 20 years. Whereas in the last 7 years, digital marketing started out as a banner ad, and look where it is now. In the same way that experiential marketing started out as events, and let's think about where that's going to transcend or transpire in the next 10 years as well. And that's really the sweet spot to marketing going forward.